If Uganda were operating on Bitcoin and this fellow Idi Amin ran out of Bitcoin, then that would limit his power, at least to an extent, right? You talk about how there's funding of wars and things. Do you feel like you connect with Bitcoin insofar as it theoretically has the ability to limit or prevent stuff like what happened to your parents?
I think it depends.
Welcome to Sat Chats, the Bitcoin podcast where we chat about sats. Sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, the same way pennies are the smallest part of a dollar. With Sat Chats, we are building the world's biggest Bitcoin welcome center to serve as your gateway to generational wealth. So if you are brand new to Bitcoin, we want to chat about sats with you. Head to satchats.com to grab your slot in the studio today. I'm your host, Stuart, Bitcoin Maxi, who wears prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from my Bitcoin laser eyes.
And I'm your co-host, Chris, founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, resident Bitcoin smash buyer.
Smash.
Whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing. Go to YouTube, head to Sat Chats, and smash the subscribe button, just like I smash buy Bitcoin every time my wife Ann lets me do it. Let's see. We just announced a brand new 10 million sats giveaway. 10 million sats. We're giving away 10 million sats.
That's 0.1 Bitcoin.
It's like 11,000. What are we calling them now?
Government tokens.
Government tokens.
That's almost 11,000 government tokens, Allie. What do you think about that? Wow.
That's a big old giveaway.
Man.
That's a fantastic giveaway.
Yeah.
That's respectable.
It ain't nothing to sneeze at.
All right. So we got the giveaway coming up. What do you have to do to enter? All you have to do is subscribe. If you are one of our first 100,000 YouTube subscribers.
Yep.
99,999 plus one, as Stuart likes to say.
Thank you.
Then you're automatically entered. That's all you got to do.
So easy.
That's it. Now, are we excluding the first 1,000?
No.
Or do they get double?
Oh, you double dipping, baby. It sounds like they're among our first 5 9s plus 1 to me, baby.
Early adopters.
Yeah.
We got to take care of them. We love you.
So the million sats winner could be the 10 million sats winner. That would be nuts.
It's possible.
We're also on the road to what?
Number 99, the beloved.
The beloved, my wife,
Stuart's
Kristen.
wife.
Yes, where I will be. It's really going to be like this. Can I have some more Bitcoin, please, babe? The money that I made and then gave to you, can I have some of it for Bitcoin? You know what I mean? Like, she gets all my money, and then I'm like, can I do some stuff with my money, babe? No. Soup for you. So we are training as hard as we can, and we've been training for 23 episodes now in a 50-episode march toward my wife. And we've been training in our expected environment, which has been ladies, lots of ladies, okay?
Come on, ladies.
A lot of lady honey money in the studio, all right? But guess what? We also need to go and find the guys who are absolute crushers of worlds, okay? Who are straight. Every time they take a step, they're compacting the earth with their feet. You know what I'm talking about? Like ancient samurai. All right.
Yeah.
And we need to sit at their feet and be like, my guy, help me power level. Right now, who's going to be helping us power level here in the studio today? None other than the world crusher himself, Allie, who has a venture capital fund that is wrecking, along with a brand new talking picture on Amazon Prime, which is called Crypto Nights. Now, we're talking about KNIGHTS, right? Like the Knights of Crypto. And it's basically, because we were watching a trailer for it yesterday, it's like a crypto Shark Tank hosted by the dude from Entourage.
What?
Yeah. And are
you kidding me?
I'm going to watch it because apparently there's some dudes that come on with some really good ideas. And then like It might have even been a clip from Allie where he's like, dude, why are you even coming on this show? Waste my time. Or I don't know. Or like he was like ripping up a dollar bill or I don't know, dude. We got to watch it.
Yeah. Turn around, get out of here.
So Allie is deep into, I would say, the wide world of crypto, right? Not just Bitcoin itself, but kind of, digital assets writ large, you might say. And he's going to be telling us his Bitcoin story today. But before you do, Allie, help our Satillionaires out there just get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm definitely going to go hit that subscribe button. As we say in crypto land, we just got to stack sats. And no matter how you get them, you always want more. So I'll definitely hit the subscribe button. So yeah, I mean, my background. So Ali Madavji, managing partner at Blockchain Founders Fund. We invest in, incredible entrepreneurs looking to build, incredible things all across this ecosystem, all across Web3 that are looking to change the world. And, that spans a lot of different things, a lot of different types of companies. It can range from anything to, how to track pharmaceuticals more effectively and reduce counterfeit to, reinventing how the ad system and the global ad system works, or building a completely decentralized social media network, or, tools for trading or infrastructure, all sorts of other really incredible things across the Web3 space. And we've been doing it a long time. So we've been doing this since, Blockchain Founders Fund since early 2018 or late 2017. And we've now backed over 200 companies. So plenty of companies that we've backed over the years, many incredible companies that everybody knows. And our goal is to do it as early as possible. So that's sort of the risks that we take as venture capitalists is how do we go find those really incredible entrepreneurs early, help them with, tools, insights, relationships, partnerships, and help them go, better, faster, stronger.
Are you able to say how much money you had when you started the Blockchain Founders Fund and how much you got now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started with a very, very small amount of money. So we actually started with our own money initially. And part of the idea, so I actually had started a crypto exchange way back in the day. And so this would have been, 2016, 17, essentially. Which once I exited at the end of 2017, we started Blockchain Founders Fund. And the big thing here was, we wanted to not only scale one company, right, our own. The idea behind it was after exiting that was let's go work with founders, roll up our sleeves and scale, 2 companies, and 2 became 4 and 4 became 8. And and part of that was putting a little bit of money where our mouth is, right? Obviously for us was material, for a company was decent, right? But, we put in 25K, 50,000, upsized to 100,000. So not huge amounts of money. And, that actually started to grow and grow. And we backed our first 60 companies with our own money. And that went really well. And then we ended up raising, a fund with a lot of, very well-known investors, everything from, Ripple, Polygon. We've got, financial institutions invested in the fund. We've got some of the largest telcos, a lot of other really, massive family offices that I can't mention, that everyone would know. But yeah, so once we raised, an additional 75 million, we're basically deploying out of that now and continue to just back incredible company.
Wow. So you started off, cause I think, are you in business with a family member, like your brother?
Correct. Yeah. It's my brother. There we go.
Mansoor, man. And I'm saying that correctly, right? Mansoor's in the shadows. He's like, I'm not coming on your show. I think we were like, yeah, we'll take both of you. Cause we tape 8 times a week, Ali. So we eat human bodies on this podcast. And we're like, dude, we'll take Ali, we'll take Mansoor, we'll take whoever, we'll take anybody in your family. Because whether you know about Bitcoin or not, you're perfect for the show, right? So it sounds like you and Mansoor started off with maybe 5 to 6 figures worth of your own capital, and over time brought in other people, and now you all have 8 figures that you're deploying into the marketplace. So that's incredible.
I mean, what a great way to do it, right? Like you are taking the risk, you're putting your money where your mouth is, as you said, and then that you start to accumulate interest from limited partners, and you get to truly be the managing partners of the fund, which is probably a pretty good place to be.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of those things, right? I mean, oftentimes people say it's really hard to crack into venture capital or into anything, right? Whether it's venture capital or something else you're aspiring to do. I think at the end of the day, you make strides, and if you work in that direction and you can show that you can execute at it, you show that you can do it well or better than many others in the space, like you will have people that'll trust you and back your vision, once you're able to show some of that, right? It's the same thing that when we look at startups, we want to see founders, put their money where their mouth is and actually invest in themselves. And we want to see, them take the risk of being full-time and building out this vision. And when I say full-time, I mean more like 18 plus hours a day, right? And, that you do got to grind if you're going to try to build something that's going to be something that changes the world and something that everyone aspires or uses, right? And so, it's important, I think, to have that work ethic and that conviction.
So what was your life like before Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I grew up in a low income family, right? My parents are refugees from East Africa, so Kenya and Uganda, and came with basically nothing but the clothes on their back. So if you're familiar with the history, 1972, Idi Amin, so military dictator, comes to power, kicks out essentially anyone that's the wrong color out of Uganda, and some of the surrounding region became pretty unstable. And one of the things that I learned at a really young age was work ethic, right? I think in a similar fashion, my father worked, 16, 18 hours a day, multiple things, just to make ends meet. And, I kind of did the same really early, right? I learned from some of these things. And as a kid, there's always, things you want, right? You want like, all sorts of little things. You want, the newest toy or the newest video game, or you want like even just bubble gum or a slushie from the store. And you're like, okay, how am I going to start making some money to go do this? Cause I'm clearly not going to get it, from parents. And so I started all sorts of, small businesses when I was a kid or small roles, right? So the first thing I did at a really young age was a paper route. And I realized this is a horrible way to make money, even as a kid. And so after doing the paper route for a little while, I was like, okay, this is not gonna make me much money.
It's not scalable.
It's not scalable, but even as a kid, you weren't fully thinking like that. But I was like, okay, you're getting paid it was like $2 an hour. It was probably like around that, right? And so it was horrible. And I was like, okay, you're gonna work all these hours, and then you can buy like a slushie, right? And so then it was basically, I was really good with computers. And so, one, I was building and selling computers pretty early for myself, building computers for myself. And then, people came to me like, hey, can you get me this advanced computer or this for gaming or this? And so I actually started building and selling computers for others. And this was, I was probably not even 10 years old at the time. And so that was pretty cool. And then people came to me with questions on setting up their computer networks and like their home internet and like routers. But back then it was more wired, like very wired. But there was those things that I started doing, and then people would get viruses and be like, hey, can you help me fix viruses? And I was good with that stuff. So I started doing that. Then it became interesting. So then, actually people at the time, people were trying to get movies, and music, right? So you'd want to get music on your MP3 or movies. And this was early sort of nowadays where, you've got Pirate Bay and LimeWire for music and Napster and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I can figure it out. Like, what do you need? And so people would give me requests of what they need, and I'd go figure it out. And then I would start burning it. And then there became more and more demand. And so I ended up creating this website, which still haunts me, but I created this website that was black with like neon green writing. Okay. It was like the worst looking website you can imagine. And there was just names of like movies or music that I could get you. And then it was just, if there's anything else you need, let me know and I'll figure it out. And then a phone number. So that was my phone number. And I would get calls from all sorts of people around town, just being like, hey, can you get me this? Can you get me this? And so, yeah, I ended up at, pretty much 12, 13 years old, burning, probably something like 4 DVDs every 30 minutes. And there was demand that would go 24 hours a day. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night and keep burning stuff for people. And it turned into actually a pretty good business as a young kid. And then China continued to step up their game, right? Of fake movies in local markets and all this. And so I had to continue to improve what I was doing. So then I had to make the professional cases around it. And, it actually would like silk screen the images onto the front of the actual DVD. And like, so productions got better and better.
No more black Sharpie.
Exactly, right? So yeah, so you remember, so first it was black Sharpie, there you go. And I'd have to make sure I wrote it really nicely. And half the time my writing was not very great. But yeah, then it actually turned into like pretty professional looking. And then it just got more and more competitive, right? Like with China just continuously dumping the market and prices going down. And I think also a lot more people starting to access these things, right? Like a lot more people learned about Pirate Bay and learned about LimeWire and like those things as it grew. And then, started working on a few other things, right? Like made a game when I was really young and all sorts of other things. And then when I was 17, I actually, I joined the Canadian Air Force, while I also went to school. I tried that for a year, decided it wasn't the right fit, especially because Canada doesn't have, many working fighter jets or planes. And it's a pretty limited military. And then once I finished my undergrad, went to PwC and PwC was an incredible spot, got an incredible foundation for business. And one of the really cool things, when I was in university, actually, I served on the board of directors of the University of Toronto. So multi-billion-dollar institution, exposed myself to a lot of really, really incredible mentors, and was on the executive committee there. And this sort of relates to the Bitcoin and how I ended up getting into Bitcoin, I think from an ideological perspective. But when I was leaving the University of Toronto, the president asked me and said, hey, you've got a lot of really great experience. Why don't you write something that can help students? And sort of as I wrote that and iterated and sent it back, they were like, why is this for U of T students, University of Toronto? Why not for all Canadian students? And I made some edits, worked on it. Then it was, why is this for Canadian students? Why not, publish this as a book for all students globally? And so that actually turned into my first book, which was called Your Guide to Succeed in University, and ended up doing quite well. So at the age of 21, 22, was speaking all around North America, a lot of, colleges and universities around the US and Canada were giving it to all of their students at orientation week, and it ended up becoming the number one college book in America. It became the number one college book on Amazon. It won an International Book Award, and so that was a really cool, unexpected thing that happened. But one of the things for me was I was always disappointed and maybe frustrated still with the system. Right. So, my parents came with very little, had to grind through. I obviously grind and work a lot, but it was, how do we actually make a better playing field for everyone? Right. And I didn't think that governments were doing enough. I think it was very much do it on your own. And in fact, governments oftentimes aren't doing enough or anything to help people, even though that's really the sole purpose of why they should be around. And And so that became sort of a frustrating point. And so I looked at education and higher education as one of those ways, or really the only way I thought, where you could jump social economic classes. And then later on, as I discovered Bitcoin, I looked at it as a similar, in some ways, as a way that's, separate from the system, like not necessarily from a financial standpoint. So first, when I looked at it, it was, this is something that doesn't fund wars. It's something that, is basically a way to like get out of the current system. And it is a really interesting and like exciting ideology, which sort of aligned with some of those things of disagreeing with the way the system worked. And then later became more of a, financial side as well, which I think was a bit more unexpected, but, at least to the level it is today, let's call it, right? And still going. So that was kind of the early days. I know it was a little long-winded, but that kind of runs through, the early days of the journey and how we got here.
That's incredible. And thank you for taking me back to my, tween and teenage years, where, I mean, the poor Sega Dreamcast, Ali, golly, good night, dude. I was playing like Tokyo Bus Driver on that thing in Japanese, didn't even know what I was trying to do, but it didn't matter because, I got the game for free, baby. I mean, you would there was, we were figuring it out. You would also go to a guy's house and he would have DVDs. That is so hilarious, man. I love it. And right when he said the term burning, I was like, my guy gets it. My guy was burning Stevie's DVDs. Man, when that tray would eject, she's like, yo, boy, we ready to roll. Oh my gosh. Amazing. So, very interesting to be so enterprising from a young age. It sounds like you found Bitcoin when you were how old?
Oh God. It would have been, it was a while ago. It was about a decade ago.
And you actually, it sounded like you came into it from the philosophical or ideological perspective, and the whole, maybe the more traditional number go up was not an initial consideration for you.
Not so much, right? Like, it was definitely an ideology. And I still, I mean, very much have that ideology. I think that, like, and I think a lot of people go into it from a financial perspective, but I think it's still, the most exciting thing that sort of separates from the system, right? And the challenge maybe now with Bitcoin is a lot of it's being held in institutions instead of in like cold storages and wallets, which I'm a little concerned about. But in general, it's still, I mean, it's like I said, like it's something that's doesn't fund wars. It doesn't fund anything evil, right? It's like completely neutral. Like it's right. And that's such an exciting feature or foundation to Bitcoin that I think is nearly impossible to replicate because of human greed, right? And oftentimes when we create something, we screw it up a lot or find ways to, extract value or tremendous value from it if we were to like have control over it. But the fact that, Bitcoin actually doesn't have any single person or entity or even a set of entities that can control it, makes it, I think, like a pretty incredible innovation.
Is it, Ali, fair to say that the idea at the core of that ideology is that Bitcoin is something that you felt could reverse the trend of power and wealth being transferred from the people to the bureaucratic class?
No, exactly. I think so definitely that was part of it, but not maybe fully to the extent we see it today, right? Like I don't think any of us imagined it to be where it is today, from a price perspective, but from the perspective of a way to basically separate from the existing, economic system, which I think is basically built in a lot of ways to keep people where they are, keep people at the class where they are, keep grinding at things. Like, it's very difficult to switch and change economic classes, economic opportunity. Startups and venture capital does that to some extent, right? And gives people an opportunity. I think with technology today, you can do more than you've ever been able to do before, but the bar also keeps going up higher and higher and faster and faster. And so I think, similar to how I mentioned higher education has the ability to switch social economic classes, I think now emerging technologies, Bitcoin in particular, I mean, AI, I'd probably even put in that category, where you can be part of certain movements that I think really change the game. And these are pretty exciting innovations.
What was the name of the Ugandan dictator?
Idi Amin.
Idi Amin. He came to power and kicked out everyone who, wasn't black?
More or less.
And how did he fund all of his hijinks?
I mean, he was president. You got the whole power of the government and the power of the military on your side, right?
Do you feel like somewhere you can understand that Bitcoin not only sets everybody free and puts them on a parallel system, but also limits power? If Uganda were operating on Bitcoin and this fellow Idi Amin ran out of Bitcoin, then that would limit his power, at least to an extent, right? You talk about how there's funding of wars and things. Do you feel like you connect with Bitcoin insofar as it theoretically has the ability to limit or prevent stuff like what happened to your parents?
I think it depends. I think there's maybe like some potential to help. I think, on the other hand, like, people that want to do evil will probably still find ways to still do evil. And so I think it can help, because if it becomes the de facto over time, and this essentially becomes the reserve currency globally, then I think you limit the ability to print. And so, okay, so the way I look at economies is fairly similar for, say, like, national currencies, the way I look at even tokens. And a lot of people in crypto obviously are talking about like altcoins and all these things, right? And so when you take a national currency, right, and you look at, what it's being used for, right? And there's basically like a leakage in these systems. So you basically have these currencies, and let's, like, to simplify it, you've kind of got this like closed loop. The idea is this money is essentially going to get recycled through the system, but then you keep printing more money, and then you're using it for things, but you're not running a balanced budget. But then you're using it for things like wars, corruption. There's just different like leakage in the system, right? And the more that falls out, the more that this system doesn't work, right? And so you see this in a lot of countries, and it's kind of the same way really with like altcoins. Like, you see a lot of people creating these economies or tokens, but only 10% of the value is going back in. Well, of course, if you have 90% of the value falling out of this circle, and it's basically like just a massive hole, it's not going to work. And so it's kind of similar with both of those. And so if we get to the point where the reserve currency changes, it limits the ability to print and out of that system. That doesn't mean you can't still run a corrupt organization and take more from the existing pie, because right now, like, you essentially have this pie and you can steal from it or print more and then take from that, and that drives inflation and other issues. But if you limit the ability to print more, you then like limit essentially that pie to that size, unless you actually can have like real growth instead of like artificial growth, which is like printing, right? That's kind of how I look at it. It's a little bit simplified, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of, to have a fundamentally strong system, you can't have leakage in it.
Well, you heard it from Ali right here, folks. He thinks of national currencies the same way he thinks about cryptocurrencies, okay? They're tokens, baby. So here we are working for a government token. Ugh, get this out of my face.
Is that a fair comparison to you, Ali?
Well, there are different degrees of it, right? Like if you look at a lot of these altcoins, I mean, if they've got 80, 90% leakage and only 10% of the value going back in, like there's a big hole. Like that system's not working really at all for very long. If you take national currencies, I mean, a lot of it's still based on trust, and the government's still doing things that are supposed to be good. But if they're not balancing the budget and they keep printing more money and they keep funding more wars and other things, like there's just more and more leakage out of this system, right? And, you know, national currencies generally, or like if you take major national currencies, it's generally going to not be anywhere close to that level of leakage. And so the system still works better. But, you know, there's still a degree of leakage. And as that becomes, you know, a longer and longer time period, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, like these systems fall apart for that reason, because I think human nature is around how do we take more value for ourselves, right? And that is a big problem when you don't have great governance around this and a strong ability to say, okay, we've got to build something that's going to stand the test of time. And for politicians, it's very difficult to do that, right? Like you're in a 4-8 year cycle. Like, why are you building for 100 years out or 50 years out?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's to be a politician in today's world, Ali, is like being my dad. When he hangs out with my son and my son asks for something, my dad says, "Here, love me." You know, then my son wants something else. He's like, "Here, love me," right? Just whatever you want, I'll give it to you. All I want is just love me. You know what I mean? Spend time with me, love me. Because he doesn't care what he is or is not teaching my son in terms of like abilities to be successful later in life. He wants the fifth Arthur to love him, the third Arthur, right now. And he doesn't care what he has to do it. And politicians are the same way. They're like, everybody's suffering. You know what? Here's a bunch of fresh money. Love me. Reelect me, right? But we try not to talk too much about politics on this show because Bitcoin's going to reshape all that business anyways. Here's what I want to hear from you, Ali. Because we've, you know, people know by this point in the show that you've got a lot of exposure to the world of cryptocurrencies. And Sat Chats, it's, you know, we're not crypto chats. We are Sat Chats. We chat about Sats. And we are Bitcoiners. We try to be Bitcoin gentlemen, right? It's only when I go to the Bitcoin meetup here in Raleigh and hang out with my boy Simple Steve that I let my toxic Bitcoin maxi out. But on air for all my Satillionaires who haven't stacked their first sats, we keep it real gentlemanly. So we have plenty of guys who like Bitcoin and who are interested in the wider world of crypto. So number 44, Evan, he loves Solana. You know, my guy DS Flat is all about big blocks. He loves Bitcoin Cash and other things. We're like, okay, bud, love ya. But, you know, everybody's welcome, correct?
Yeah.
So we can't just spend the whole time talking about Bitcoin when we have a dude who's on the dang Crypto Nights show over here.
Right.
What I want to hear from you is, how would you contrast and compare Bitcoin with crypto? And what is the case for a beginner who hasn't even stacked their first sats to also maybe save some space in their mind to explore that world of cryptocurrency, right? Because you have a toxic Bitcoin maxi who's like, nope. And quite frankly, to be rigorously honest, here on the show, Ali, we say Bitcoin is Bitcoin, crypto is kryptonite. Not your kind of kryptonites, the Superman kind of kryptonite. We're like, guys, don't mess with it. Just stack sats and keep living your life because there can be a lot of problems there. How can you help us explore this in a more nuanced, less fearful way?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would agree that like Bitcoin's in a category of its own. And I think we're seeing a world and a focus right now on Bitcoin, right? A big focus on Bitcoin. I mean, everything from national reserves in the US announcements, many public companies starting to hold it. You may have seen the $710 million raise from David Bailey for Nakamoto last week to basically start getting control of boards of public companies to basically use revenues to go buy Bitcoin. Like, I think you're going to see a very, very big movement in sort of the public eye around Bitcoin and public companies around Bitcoin in the coming year. So I think that's a very, very exciting side of things. I think from a crypto perspective, I guess I would look at it more if you're a beginner around just like learning, right? And so when you go to university or college, you go spend $1,000, $2,000 on a course and you go learn, right? Or, if you're trying to do an online course or whatever. And a really good idea is normally just to take a small amount of money in a similar way, something that's not, super material or anything, and go try a few different things, right? And in the same way as you would for like an education course and like go learn something, if you take a little bit of money and you go try a few things that people are talking about or that you think are interesting, whether you like the Solana ecosystem or Sui ecosystem or whatever, like go try using, DeFi products in a decentralized exchange, right? And, create that opinion for yourself. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. It's more like going through the process, learning about it, seeing how to do it, actually do it for yourself, setting up an EVM wallet, like any of these types of things. I think is just helpful more from a build your own opinion on things, go learn how it works, see if you like it, see if it's something you want to do. And, probably in a somewhat similar way, not exactly a great comparison, but, if you were to go buy like, the Fortune 500, it's like an easy bet, right? It's in a lot of ways, like Bitcoin is like the simpler, easier one. But if you're going to go start buying penny stocks, it's not the same as, holding Apple shares or whatnot. Right. And, but like a lot of the crypto world is kind of like buying penny stocks, not all of it, but a lot of it. And there's less controls in the sense of, less transparency. There's teams that are selling tokens. You don't have this problem with Bitcoin from like the team, right? Selling tokens. So you don't have like these big sort of risk factors in the same way as you would with like a new token launch or earlier token. But I think it's still something you go learn about, you read about, you see if it's something that's interesting to you. You can do really well in it. But you also have a good strategy if you sort of want the hands-free sort of Fortune 500 type strategy. It's go buy Bitcoin, right?
So tell us a little bit about your journey through, some crypto that's good and some crypto that just is a penny stock on this new show right here. Tell us about the show on Amazon Prime. We want to hear about Crypto Nights and what was your experience there?
Yeah, so Crypto Nights, as you mentioned, it's essentially a Shark Tank like show for crypto, and I think it's an incredible way to learn about the whole world of crypto and what's going on. And of course, Adrian Grenier from Entourage is the host. I was one of the knights or judges on the show, and entrepreneurs that are trying to build a really cool future and build a really cool company come onto the show and pitch what they're working on and why we should fund them. And we ask a lot of hard questions as you should, right? And, and then we determine each knight or judge determines on their own if they should invest their own money into these companies. And so there is, substantial real money being invested in these startups and some of them have been great and are continuing to go in the right direction. Of course, with all investments, some of them, maybe not so great, right? And so it's really cool for the audience, I think, to be able to hear the same things we hear, to hear answers, understand like, what are we looking for? How are we thinking about some of these companies? How do we break down companies and really get to what we think is important? And then be able to, even judge what they invest in it, or I completely disagree with that night, or what are they thinking? Why are they offering these guys money? But you get a pretty good idea of, what venture capital is even like.
Did they drop the whole show at once on Amazon Prime, or is it like coming out week by week?
No, the whole show is dropped. I haven't seen the whole thing yet because it just came out a couple of days ago. So I'm actually watching it right now alongside kind of everyone else. So I think I'm on episode 7 right now. But it's exciting. So definitely something you want to check out.
What then is the funniest or otherwise most memorable moment of that show for you?
Oh boy. So I generally think of myself as pretty nice. Although, and I think I'm the nice one on the show, but I'm not sure everyone else is going to agree, or at least maybe when you watch it, you might not agree. But one of the things that I get really frustrated on in the crypto space is there's tends to be a lot of bad actors. And there's a lot of people that look at this as a very quick way to take, from other people. And I fundamentally disagree. I think we're in a space where, we can actually grow the pie dramatically and everyone can win, and we can create win-win-wins. And oftentimes people try to take the short-term solution of, well, win-lose, right? And I don't like that. And it frustrates me a lot about the space. And so, I do think it's important to call that kind of thing out when I just think it's a system that won't work. And, whether it's deliberately or unintentionally created in a way that I don't think it'll work, like I am going to say something about it. And so there's a couple of pretty interesting incidents, on the show where, I call out things that I think are very questionable. So one you mentioned, I had a mint condition actually on me. I had a mint condition, $100 trillion Zimbabwean bill. And it's a really good example of inflation for countries, right? And, that type of inflation kind of signifies, I think, the value of why Bitcoin, is Bitcoin, and why it doesn't have all that leakage we talked about, right? Essentially in the system, and isn't going to devalue consistently against everything else. And so there was a company that came out. You're going to have to watch the show. There was a company that came out, and I equated, what they were doing and their token to that Zimbabwean bill. And so you might see it in the trailer. But that just came out, and I think I oftentimes just say what's on my mind, right? And I think entrepreneurship's an incredible path, but honestly, I don't think it's for everyone. Like, I think if you're building in this space, you need to have the right ethics, you need to have the right intent, and you got to be able to build something that's win-win-win. And we're a huge fan of supporting that kind of thing and want to be involved in that kind of thing. But if we don't think it's gonna help everyone win, it's not the right thing, and it's not good for this industry.
All right, Ali, after you're done smashing the subscribe button for your shot at the 10 million sats, your homework is to hit our playlist and find number 46 Draco, who got stranded in Zimbabwe during the pandemic and had to try to stay alive in a world where the money was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. We're talking about people making Zimbabwean dollars and immediately buying cinder blocks with them to pile up under a tarp in their backyard because the cinder blocks were going to hold their value better than that note you tore up on crypto nights.
He told us about a guy in the grocery store, and his whole job was to go around all day and just reprice items as fast as he could.
With that gun, with that sticker gun.
Yeah. Insane. Just, we don't know what that feels or looks like here, and yeah,
it's crazy. So give that one a list. There is so much more that we could talk to you about, and there's so much more to Bitcoin that we just won't ever fit it into a single chat about sats. So, Ali, we do ask each of our guests if they'd be willing to come back on in 9 months to give us an update on their Bitcoin baby. Would you be willing to do that for us?
Absolutely. Would love to.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And by then we'll be like, dude, Crypto Nights season 2 renewed. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the part where Ali lit a whole stack of Zimbabwean dollars on fire? Like he's the Joker from the second Batman movie, just walking away like an absolute madman.
Yes.
So
Don't give me ideas.
if you do that, you got to get us on set, and we'll be like, we'll be like henchmen in the back. You know what I'm talking about? It'll be an excellent cameo. So let's recap our convo here with Ali, so that Mansoor can just jump to this part because we know he just wants to see like what's the cliff notes. Okay.
Yeah.
So Ali's parents got tossed out of Uganda by Idi Amin, dictator, not such a nice fellow. And they landed over here in the Western Hemisphere. It sounded like Canada.
Yeah.
And were working their butts off. Ali picked up the work ethic from his old man. He also wanted slushies. I think I heard the word slushies like 3 to 5 times
What
from
kid
Ali.
doesn't?
Dude, I mean, I used to go down to the 7-Eleven and get the Slurpees, and I'd be like, man, like mixing up the colors.
There you go.
He wanted some slushies, okay, along with some other sundries that you want as a kid, but he wasn't getting no money from his parents. So what's he going to do? He's going to make some of his own money. And man, what was the very first business? It wasn't the computer stuff. What was it? What was the first one?
That's right. Not scalable,
dude. He's yeeting the newspapers, making $2 an hour. Oh my God! Would go on to raise 75 million. What a legend! So flipped from that over into the world of computers, started to build them for himself, starting to build them for others, starting to troubleshoot the viruses. Probably has that Windows 95 screen popping up nice and juicy.
Starts ripping DVDs.
He's like, dude, you're getting a Dell. I bet my guy was on a Gateway back in the day.
Oh, the Gateway 2000.
Oh, man. And then, he started getting into the world of piracy. Let's go. What a Chad. What a Chad he was on Pirate Bay.
Who wasn't back then?
Who really wasn't, dude? We were
Everybody
big, fat pirates.
We
were so bad. And just said the key word of burning, which is literally just, I love that. I can't wait to go talk to my brother. Like, dude, Ali was burning DVDs for the boys. And just continue that entrepreneurialism through to University of Toronto, where somehow he got himself onto the board of the university as a student or something. Yeah. We'll have to unpack that. We'll have to unpack how he pulled that off when he comes back in 9 months. And expose himself to like people that are just doing it right, and they're wealthy, they're smart, they're risk takers. He's steeping himself in that sauce, and eventually gets himself to a place where I think you built a crypto exchange and then sold it and rolled that cash into the Blockchain Founders Fund. And you were kind of bootstrapping 60 companies with you and Mansoor's cash until you were successful enough to raise 8 figures and just start going absolutely Punisher mode on the earth. And eventually now has been selected for your prowess to hang out with Adrian. Is it Grenier? Grenier?
Correct. Yeah, Grenier. Yeah.
Grenier, Adrian Grenier on the Crypto Nights, where he is straight either blessing you up for your good idea or just tearing up Zimbabwean dollars in front of your face.
Roll out the guillotine.
He's like, he does like this right here. Like Larry's like, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Somebody actually stabs the dude privately before he goes on screen, just like in Gladiator. He's like,
him up.
He's like trying to give his pitch wounded, and the whole thing's rigged. No, I can't wait to check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. And we also got a little bit of insight from Ali into the fact that Bitcoin is in a class of its own, which we love to hear. Thank you for that.
Agreed.
And that many cryptocurrencies are effectively like penny stocks, and you really shouldn't mess around with them. So you have to get smart and sift through them. And I liked your advice of maybe just getting started and trying it a little bit just to see how it works. And maybe we'll also just look at what Ali picks on the show and be like, well, if he says it's a good idea, we'll go check it out ourselves. And we'll let somebody who's actively sifting through all this stuff sift through it for us. Also, I did hear that government money is basically like a token. All I'm saying, y'all, government tokens. Okay, you're sketched out by cryptocurrencies. You got government tokens. Just saying. Okay. Now let's make old Ali an offer in exchange for his time, but we'll go ahead and tank up first.
All right, Ali, our founding sponsor here, which we're looking for more sponsors if you know anybody. You know any companies?
Holler.
In the Bitcoin space, that is. But our founding sponsor is my company, Ithaca Hummus. You chose the classic flavor, and I regrettably must share with you that we are out. We're out of classic. It's so popular.
That hurts me because I'm a classic Ithaca Hummus man, Ali, and that's my favorite flavor.
We got you lemon garlic instead. Okay, and since you can't be here with you, as scary as this may sound, Stuart will act as your taste buds, okay? And we're gonna taste this sucker together.
And actually, I'm gonna
How's
start.
that make you feel?
I'm gonna start this journey here for you, Ali, right over here.
Ooh, a little sensory journey.
Woo! Yeah.
Fresh
Okay.
lemon.
I'm picking up some nice notes there through the nostrinos. Okay,
Yeah.
fat glob. Here we go.
All
Cheers, Ali.
Let's go.
Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the best batch. That's a good batch right there.
It's delicate in the garlickiness, right? But it's not too much.
A
But
nice lemon.
It's punched up on the lemon, man.
Yeah.
I feel like my teeth are cleaner.
Maybe we'll throw the lot code into the episode description, and you can go out and try to find this exact lot of lemon garlic if you can.
That's tasty.
Great
That's
batch.
tasty. Okay.
All right. So to wrap things up here, we believe in value for value here on the Sat Chats show. So in exchange for your time and wealth of knowledge that you shared here with us and our audience, we're going to offer you the choice between $50 and $50 worth of Bitcoin, which I will calculate using Simple Steve's UTXO.
The only way to actually get the exchange rate
This
of
is the
Bitcoin.
blockchain right here. Okay. Here's the mempool. Here's the confirmed on-chain transactions. That's where we're going to get our price from.
Yeah.
Our exchange rate right now is $108,927 for one Bitcoin.
The Bitcoiners knew Ali was coming on the show. They were like, get it up.
Yep.
They're like all-time high now.
Yep. All right. So multiply by 100 million because there's 100 million sats in every Bitcoin. We got 45,902, 45,902 sats or 50 bucks.
Government tokens.
50 tokens.
That's a very, very easy choice. I'll definitely take the sats.
Yeah.
Yes. Come
All
on,
right.
dude. That's an easy choice. Okay. So if you think Ali's smart at all, and by the way, he's like operating a multi-million-dollar, etc., then it's an easy choice.
Easy
Okay.
choice.
You don't want the leakage. Dude, the leakage on the national currency is, ugh.
The leaky bucket.
Dude, that nation state paper's dripping, Ali. Ooh, gross. Oh my gosh. But you want to know what's watertight? Some Bitcoin.
Let's wrap this up.
All right. 45,902 Satoshis for my guy, number 73, Ali, correct? So that you bring our scoreboard to 67 who have stacked the sats, along with 6 who needed a little bit more time. Where can the folks go if they want to interact with you or the Blockchain Founders Fund online?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn, Ali Madavji, on X, Ali_Madavji. You can go to our website at blockchainff.com. If you're working on an exciting new startup, let us know. You can share details with us on our website as well, or reach out to myself or any one of our team members.
Outstanding. And we'll have all that in the show notes as
Nice.
well. This is the part of the show where we ask you for your value, Satillionaires, in exchange for ours. If you made it this far and liked our chat about sats with Ali, give us what we value, YouTube subscription.
And watch hours.
And what are we going to give you in exchange for your YouTube subscription? 10 million Satoshis. Not 45,000. 10 million. And you better get in there now because Ali's going to be jumping in there himself right after this show. And then number 46, Draco, don't forget. You can also jump on satchats.com to grab your slot in the studio today. SatChats is just like Bitcoin. We know Ali's a big guy, but if you're a regular guy, you can come on the show too, right? All you got to do is sign up to come on. It's really easy. So remember, SatChats is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice. Also, our guests' views and their Paris Saint-Germain scarves are their own. We'll see you tomorrow.